Okay, so it's coming up to 2 minutes past, so I'll kick off. I can see somebody has just said hello from Chile. Wow. Good morning to you in Chile, Alvaro. So welcome everybody to the webinar. So welcome to the last webinar in our Atlassian in Scotland series. I'm Nigel Rochford. I'm founder and CEO of New Verve Consulting, and I'm going to be your host today. If it's your first time joining one of our webinars, this installment is actually the last in our current series, which focuses on ITSM or IT service management. So Atlassian products and vendor tools, they can transform your IT and business teams. And as an Atlassian solution partner, our job is to show you how you can maximize the greatest value from your IT and digital services by utilizing Atlassian solutions. First up, I'll just do a quick recap. So our aim for this series was to show how an Atlassian ITSM solution could unlock high velocity teams and bring them together really to deliver, operate and support exceptional service experiences. Our last webinars have presented local customer success stories, but also solution insights using products such as Jira Service Management, Confluence, Opsgenie, and so on. And we've also shown how additional apps from the Atlassian marketplace can be leveraged for things like automation, reporting, theming, and customer management as well. Our goal was to really show that an ITSM solution built on the Atlassian platform can be fast to implement and easy to use. It can be open and collaborative, and it can also get your development and IT operations teams working more efficiently together. In our last webinar today, we're focusing actually on eazyBI. It's a reporting app that can significantly enhance your ITSM solution and practices. And we've got a couple of speakers for you today. We'll also be joined later by Dinah from eazyBI as well for our Q&A session, and also Victor from the New Verve team. So our main speakers will be Gerda from eazyBI and Kris from New Verve Consulting. As per usual, we'd encourage you all to ask some questions as we go. So if you haven't used Zoom before, there's a Q&A dialogue at the bottom. We'll then have a live Q&A session at the end of both talks. So at the very end, and we'll do our best to answer all your questions then. So without further ado, we're delighted to welcome Gerda as our first speaker today. As a former Jira admin, Gerda actually looks at eazyBI through admin eyes. So I'm sure you'll have some useful, or I'm sure she'll have some useful technical insights to share today. So over to you, Gerda.
Thank you, Nigel. So let me, all right. Nigel, I want to share the screen, but the host has disabled. Can you enable?
Yeah, no problem. Let me just see if I can do that.
So it looks that I can do it, I think, Lauren.
Yeah, you should be able to.
So, 1 minute. So, hi, my name is Gerda, and I work at eazyBI as customer support. And today, as Nigel already mentioned, Diana is also joining the webinar. She will help me with questions during the webinar and also after. So feel free to ask while I'm speaking, because Diana will take care of those questions. So today's agenda for the presentation is an overview of eazyBI, how to start using Jira Service Management, or previously known as Jira Service Desk in eazyBI. What chart types are available in eazyBI, as well on how to build custom reports. At the end, I will share also how to use insight data in eazyBI. So let's start. The first thing is a little bit why you could need an eazyBI app. Jira is extremely universal tool with a rich ecosystem around. It gathers data from almost any activity of our daily work. And thus, it becomes more and more important to provide tools for having better insight in this huge amount of data. And that is where eazyBI can help you. As eazyBI is a business intelligence tool for data analysis and visualization with built-in Jira and Confluence integration. Yes, so there is a fresh new app of eazyBI for Confluence as well. The integration means that eazyBI app provides users with a data warehouse type of reporting system to analyze the Jira data, allowing to make complex and flexible reports, and create that in simple manner and let them work efficiently. This is an overview of how eazyBI works. eazyBI is not a real-time reporting tool, so you have to import the data in eazyBI. But first, you have data in Jira, Jira apps, and maybe some other data that is not in Jira, like in Excel or Google Sheets or some REST API. And the first thing what you have to do is you have to import data from those systems into eazyBI. You can do it once, or you can schedule regular data update. That is a process to prepare the data in the structures that are optimized for analytics and reporting needs. When information is imported, you start creating a report. In eazyBI, you explore imported data, play around, and build reports using provided building blocks. We call them measures and dimensions. Many reports can be created with drag and drop, but there are also advanced features for more complex reporting use cases. When you have come up with a report, share it with your colleagues, partners, and other users. You may publish report in eazyBI, in eazyBI dashboard, but most of our customers prefer getting in the reports getting in the environment where they are working, as for example, Jira dashboard, Confluence page, or they want to put them on the large screen in meeting room, what is possible while using wallboard option, as well as embed eazyBI reports on some web pages using iframe. Users can also subscribe to receive eazyBI reports in their mailboxes on planned schedule. So this was an overview how eazyBI works, but let us look in more details on how integration with service management works. The only preparation task to enable the service management data to be imported in your eazyBI is to select a couple of checkboxes. eazyBI can detect that project is service management and opens import options specified for it. Here you can select the import as to import data as satisfaction, customer request, channel type, as well as your different SLAs. When you press import, you're ready to go. Then you can start exploring eazyBI by going through sample reports. There are two folders. In one, reports are based on Jira basic information like issue created, resolved, statuses, resolutions, and other. But the second is specified for Jira service management data. There are two reports per each SLA what you have in your Jira. One is met versus breached over time period, where you have the line, how it is going. And the second is SLA summary, where you can see the SLA met in percentage, as well as how many issues you have with this SLA. Those sample reports are created based on the most popular service management reports, what we have seen our users using. But there is also eazyBI demo account for Jira service management data. You can easily find the link in our documentation, or just use your favorite search engine and type eazyBI demo. Here, eazyBI team has collected and created different reports for inspiration. Also, you can reuse them by exporting the report definition and importing it into your account. In that way, you can see how it looks with your data. As well, you can change the reports so they suit better your use cases. So we have seen what is possible with eazyBI, but let's dig deeper into chart types, what are possible for better visualization of your data. Here, I took the second dashboard that we have in eazyBI demo account that covers a lot of different chart types. And I want to demonstrate what are the tips and tricks you can see in each of the chart type. And I tried to cover all main chart types, but there are a few more that you can explore on your own. The table view is the default outlook of the report, which is visible for users when they start designing report with eazyBI. it is always recommended to tune the report in the table view before applying any other chart type in eazyBI. In this report, we can see an overview of issues with their information as what the customer type they have, has the issue met or breached their SLA, and what is the satisfaction of the issue. But, well, the issue dimension can be switched to any other dimension. In this case, I have switched to customer request type to see an overview for customer requests and how many issues have met or breached their SLA. One is time to first response, and the second is time to resolution. But although this is already a more compact view than the previous one, there is still some improvements what can be done by using some other measures and cell formatting. In this report, I have used measures that shows in percentage on SLA met. One again is for time to first response met in percentage, and second time to resolution. And I also have created a measure to identify if the trend of the time to resolution is increasing or decreasing. And as well, I have created sparkline measure that in one cell shows the information for past 6 months, where there is only dots, so there is only like limited data in my test. The next chart, also still table view, and this is like a pivot table. And in this, we see most active weekdays when the issues have completed their SLA time to resolution. And to make tables look nice and see important information at glance, I have used cell formatting option for the measure. And here, one of the options is heat map, where I just need to select minimum and maximum color to create a nice looking overview. The next are bar and line charts. They're very often used in reports. Here you can see a simple bar chart of average satisfaction. And there is an option to add title to your axis, so it is clear on what measure unit it has. Another option is to use line chart, and as in this example, here I have used time to first response met and breached in, time to first response met in percentage and time to resolution met in percentage over several week period. And it is possible to change chart types in case you prefer other view. And as well, you can create a separate axe for your report. You might want to ask why to use separate axes. Well, because you can combine those two reports in one. And in this case, you can see if there is some relation between average satisfaction and SLA performance. And now with also 2 different axes per each measure unit, it is useful to see also their title, like one is in satisfaction rating and another is SLA in percentage. Also in eazyBI, there is option for pie chart. It can be adjusted as donut chart, as I have already done, and add legend to see what color is each priority, as well as data label to see the values per each segment. Next in line is gauge, and this is how the data looks in table. But by only switching to gauge and clicking the select only values option, the chart will be created more clean, like without this noise what the table view had. As well, you can see the sparklines and markdown formatting can be displayed in this report. So with this with a quick glance, you can see overview about your SLAs and satisfaction within the project. And you can see sparkline over the last 6 months, so how it is performing, and understand the trend of those measures. And the last chart, what I'm showing in this part is scatter, that displays relation between 2 measures. Here you can see scatter about issues with time to first response and time to resolution average hours. And to have some additional layer of information, it is possible to select third measure to be the size of each dot or bubble. And when this is selected, each bubble represents an issue with their 3 measures. And as I mentioned, there are few more chart types that you can explore, as Gantt chart and map chart, and as well as timeline. And now, when we have seen those chart types, let's explore how you can create your own custom reports and cover some use cases. As mentioned before, report creation is done by dragging and dropping the dimensions and selecting the measures you are interested in. In this report, what I will create, I want to show how many issues have their SLA met and breach their priority. So let's start. And to do it, I'm adding priority dimension to rows. And I'm selecting this option to see each member of this dimension. Then in a measure dimension, I select measures I'm interested in and the select issue created. Then just to have a little bit better overview, I will also add calculate members from time dimension to apply dynamic filter. Then I choose a bar chart. I want to use adjust it to display name, as it was a little bit longer. Select stacked bar charts, change colors so they identify measures better. And as well, I add data labels. And voila, the report is ready. The second one is created on a sample report, what is available in eazyBI when you import service management data. And in this case, I want to see a trend of SLA met in percentage. Is it improving over the time or reducing? As in this case, we see this light green line jumping up and down a little bit. And to do it, I will use eazyBI standard calculation to quickly create new measures. So we select the measure we want to use. In this case, time to first response. I switch to default X because there's only one measure now. And then I choose add calculated linear trend. The trend is like not quite sure if it's going up and or down. So I add average and change the color so it's not so bright in the report. And now when I compare those two lines, I can see that the trend line is going below the average. So it is decreasing, and well, it seems that the team has some place for improvements. In demo account that I already showed, we have this nice looking report about most active days based on SLA time to resolution issues. But we can also quickly create new report that would be based on a different measure. And I will select time to first response issues. So what we do, we select this measure. You can already see that the table is split by this measure. We deselect the previous one, and then we just apply cell formatting. There is this heat map option where I can choose just a maximum value, and it will be colored automatically. And again, with simple moves, the report is ready in terms of time to first response issues. And now the last example that is also based on the demo account report. This was also seen before, and we see how many issues are per priority. But if I want to see this split by a different dimension, I can do it. I will again use the service management dimensions customer request type. I remove the priority, select to see each of the values that it contains, and add legend to see what color is for each of the customer type. And of course, I can again adjust colors if I need. But yeah, in this case, this is already ready. And the last chapter of my presentation is about how to add insight data to your eazyBI reports. Currently, this integration is supported on Jira Server, but we are working closely with the Insight team to make this available on cloud. But as Insight now is part of the Atlassian, there are some new dependencies that we are waiting for. So, Insight is an asset management app on Jira. you can have an inside custom field in your Jira issues. I have business service, and when I press on this custom field, I can see the different objects, attributes. I can see different attributes that this object contains, like importance, service owner, state, and others. And similar as with Jira Service Management data, import options, I can import inside custom fields as easily. In source data, add-ons tab, I select business services for import. And now I can start using this data from inside in eazyBI. Here is an report that has an overview of different business services that I have. I can see this information, what we see so in the Jira, like service owner and importance. Also, Jira data can be combined. I have issues created in the report. What can I do? I can split this measure by priorities to see how many critical issues are there with the highest value. I can apply cell formatting. In this case, I would like to see top 3 values. So it is in red color. And voila, it's ready. But in eazyBI, it is possible also to create a custom hierarchy based on those insight attributes. In this case, it is I have chosen importance. And when the hierarchy is created, I can select importance as the main level, and it is all my business services are grouped by this attribute. So I can see how many critical business services I have and what information it contains. The next example is to see business services in the scatter chart that we also explored before. As before, I can just simply change the dimensions. I had priority, I remove it, add business service, select to see each member, and in this case, I also apply some time filter. And I can see now issues with their SLA and satisfaction data per business service. And the last one, what I have, is a risk matrix that is created based on business service importance combined with issue priority. It indicates the risk zones, and the goal would be not to see any resolution breach in the red zone, as they are critical systems with the highest and high priority. I can apply again different time filters to see how it is going for the different time periods. And again, this is done with cell formatting. As you can see, this is a bit more complex, but it also shows you that with eazyBI, easy things are easy and hard things are possible. So a short recap about what we covered. We looked at what is eazyBI and what is the workflow of using it. I showed you how to import Jira Service Management information in eazyBI and how to use different chart types with this data, as well as demonstrated a few custom reports for different use cases, how to build a new report, and how to change sample or demo reports. As well, I showed you how to combine Insight and Jira data in one eazyBI report. If you have some questions, you of course can ask during this webinar, but you can also later check our community page, where you can find a lot of already answered questions or ask your own. As well, you can see our documentation to learn more about eazyBI, or write to us if you cannot find the answers you are looking for. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Gerda. So I thought that was a really useful oversight of what's possible with eazyBI. I guess we'll be going into a little bit more detail as part of the technical session as well. So that will be good. I'm just going to enable my video again. So there we go. Can I just double check that I'm actually sharing the right screen before I go on? You should be able to see getting started with eazyBI with Gerda. Maybe Gerda, if you can confirm from your side, that would be great.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so we're at New Verve. We're actually quite excited as well to see the future cloud developments. So you mentioned Insight. So it'll be good to see what happens over the next few months with Atlassian adding more support for integrations. That'll be great. A quick request as well before we get to the Q&A. One of my own questions was just going to be about the demo site. If you wouldn't mind, Gerda, maybe just sharing the URL through the Zoom chat so people can check that kind of playground out for themselves. That would be fabulous. So on to our next speaker. So next up, we've got Kris from New Verve. So Kris worked as lead consultant and then technical lead for several years at New Verve, and now he's our head of operations. So today he'll be presenting some server solutions in eazyBI alongside some cloud-first implementations. So he's going to explore the difference between the two deployment routes and then run through some considerations you should make in migrating to Atlassian Cloud. As we all know, cloud migration is very topical at the moment, so hopefully this will be insightful for everybody. So over to you, Kris.
Hi everyone, Kris here. Hope you can see me fine. Let me just set up the presentation. That's it. So fingers crossed everyone can see that fine. And we're here today to talk about cloud migration considerations for ITSM reporting in eazyBI. Now let's do some housekeeping first. So just as a very quick note, the way this talk will progress is we're going to do a very quick intro, then move on to discuss the cloud migration considerations, introduce them, talk through some examples, and then do actually a live demo of a cloud-first implementation just to talk about why this is an approach that we recommend for people wanting to implement some custom functionality with eazyBI. And we'll close out to move on to the Q&A. So without further ado, moving on, a very quick intro. So as Nigel mentioned, I'm Kris, I'm head of ops at New Verve. And in the past, I've had the pleasure to work with eazyBI, both with the company and the app, on a range of interesting implementations. A shout out to eazyBI support, and they have an amazing support team. So massive kudos for helping us in our custom implementations over the past few years. And I do recommend that if you are an eazyBI user, make sure that you get in touch with support if you need any help. I'm sure they'll be there to help you. Moving on, so considerations. What do we mean when we talk about these considerations? Why are we here? Why do we want to talk about this in the first place? Now, unless you have been living under a rock, which is fine, no shame in that, but you will probably know that Jira Server is going away over the next few years. So as such, we should all make sure that we are implementing things in a cloud-first manner, and if not cloud-first, then at least cloud-friendly. And the purpose of this talk really is to illustrate what considerations go into that. So what we're going to do is present a couple of theoretical use case scenarios just to talk through how you might want to work with eazyBI, and then demonstrate that on some practical examples and show how these examples might influence the decisions you make. So moving on, this is the first case that we're going to describe, and it's the easy case. It's the uninteresting case. This is how eazyBI works by default. This is how it works in server and data center as well as cloud. And the basic premise is always the same. So assuming that you have some Jira data in the Jira database and you want to build some custom consolidated reports on it, you are going to use the natively available Jira import functionality in eazyBI, pull your data, your Jira data in from the Jira database into the eazyBI database, and then that then exposes your data to the eazyBI functionality, and you can build your custom bespoke consolidated reports across all your Jira data. As I mentioned, that's the easy case, it's the boring case, and if only things were always so easy. So let's have a look at the not so easy cases. And the first one that we're going to describe is the case where we have some unsupported data. In this situation, let's imagine that, for example, the default import functionality that is available in eazyBI, for whatever reason, does not support importing the type of data that you want to report on. And that can be for many reasons. One of the most common reasons is you have some third-party app installed in Jira, and you want to report on some of the data that is used by that app. And that app might store its data in its own tables in the Jira database. It might even, in some cases, have its own separate database. Now, it's worth a shout out that eazyBI actually, in many cases, does a good job in supporting the import functionality for some major apps, such as, for example, Tempo. I think Insight was mentioned there before. Profields is another one of them. But obviously, it is a consideration when you're building your custom reports. You might want to keep this in mind. Now, let's expand on this case and move on to the next one. And the next one is the case where we need to actually pre-process the data. So what happens if, before we build our custom reports, we actually want to do something interesting with that data? For example, normalize it or tie it in with some other external data. And in fact, both this example and the previous example that I showed you are very similar in that in each case, what we need to do is take the data out of the Jira database or whatever other database we have in mind, do something with that data, and then import it into the eazyBI database for further report building. It's worth mentioning at this stage that both the data export and the data import can be done in multiple ways. The most common routes are SQL, so database import export, or using APIs. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the available options in a little bit more detail and discuss how your choice of deployment modes, so server versus cloud, can influence which way you will go. Let's have a look at that. So the considerations for the not so easy cases are as follows. We have three different ways where we can pre-process that data before we pull it into eazyBI. The first case is the simplest one, and that is JavaScript. And as it turns out, eazyBI actually supports embedding a little bit of JavaScript code into your import function, so that when you're pulling that data in, you can do something with that data. You can normalize it, you can tweak it to pull it in the form that you choose. This is the sort of simplest case. It is very handy because it's all internal. It's built into the eazyBI app. It is portable, so it is supported both in server and cloud, with obviously some caveats where platform differences are concerned, but it is an option that is supported across both. The main con here is that it is a limited option. So obviously you don't want to do too much data processing in JavaScript if you can help it. Which brings us to the other two options. And the other two options are programmatic export and import. And the first one we're going to look at is Java API. So if you remember from the previous slide, when we're taking data out of the database, we can actually do that using the Java API in the Jira server world. And you'll notice from the cons that it is non-portable because obviously access to the Java API requires access to the underlying managed infrastructure, which is only possible on the server and DC side of things. However, because we are able to use the Java API, this is potentially the most powerful route, because we are only limited by what the API allows us to pull out of Jira. And that option has the benefit of also being internal to the infrastructure that our Jira is installed on. So if we have access to the managed server on which Jira runs, we can just build a little microservice using the Java API on that same infrastructure and leverage the power that we already have there. But as I mentioned, this is the non-portable route because it's only really supported in server and data center. And that brings us to the third option, which is kind of the best of both worlds, because it is also only limited by the available API functionality. But here we're talking about the REST API. So we're using the REST API to pull the data out of the database and do something with it and pull it back in. That option is portable because the REST API is available on both Jira Server, Data Center, and Cloud. There's an obvious caveat there that the REST API might differ between the two platforms, but nevertheless, it is there. And the con, which is not really a con, but it's something to keep in mind, is that in this case, you will actually have to, if you're working, especially if you're working in Atlassian Cloud, you will actually have to build your programmatic import-export on a microservice that is on a different infrastructure to your Jira. So you have to keep that in mind in your, for example, cost considerations. It is something to keep in mind. You need a separate infrastructure. Note that we consciously have decided not to cover the SQL import-export option here. It is also a powerful option. However, it is tedious. And it is also non-portable because access to the database obviously also requires access to, excuse me, to the managed service infrastructure that Jira runs on, which you might not have access to. Moving on from that, let's have a look at a couple of practical examples of that sort of implementation to see what it might look like. So the first one that we're going to look at is an eazyBI for Jira Server and Data Center. And this is a sort of architecture diagram where we filled in some specific bits of information. It's based on our project experience working with one of our long-term customers called Synergy Learning. You might remember Synergy Learning from one of our previous webinars. They are an e-learning service provider who utilize a full suite of Atlassian server software in support of their service delivery. Now, in our project experience, Synergy Learning wanted to bring some data into eazyBI, and that was stored in a Jira app called Profields, which is made by Dizer. Shout out to eazyBI, they do actually support bringing data in from Profields into eazyBI. However, in our case, the project requirements were such that we had to do some pre-processing to that data before pulling it back into eazyBI, which wasn't supported out of the box. So in order to do that, we had to make a decision on how to implement the import and export. And we chose to make the solution as performant as possible and to utilize the existing server infrastructure, which is under our control. So we built a little microservice using another app, which was already available in Jira, called ScriptRunner, and it's made by Adaptivist. And ScriptRunner has the ability to allow you to create a custom API endpoint. And what you can do is you can use that endpoint to pull the data out of Jira or Profields or other app using the Java API, do whatever you need to do with that data, pre-process it, and then push it into eazyBI using the REST API import in eazyBI. And I'll just very quickly show you what the result of that looks like. So this is an example report from that project, where you can see that we have indeed pulled in some data directly from the Profields app. As you can see from the measures selected, this particular report shows you Profields project level data plotted over time, which is the option that was not supported at the time when we were doing the implementation. That kind of wraps up our server example, and hopefully it's clear what the idea is behind pulling the data out to do something with it and then pulling it back in. So in this case, we needed to pull data out of Profields to plot it over time before pulling it back into eazyBI. Now let's have a look at a cloud-specific example or cloud-first example. And in this case, we're going to look at an implementation which functions across both cloud and server, but it utilizes infrastructure that is external to your Jira. So here we're using the REST API for both the export and the import. You'll remember from our previous example that we used the Java API for the export and the REST API for the import. Here it's REST all around, which makes this implementation cloud friendly. And we're going to implement the actual programmatic export using an external infrastructure hosted in AWS Lambda, which is a serverless compute platform from Amazon Web Services. And what we're going to do here is we're actually going to go through a practical example of what this looks like, just to illustrate how you could do that in practice for your own use case scenario. So in keeping with our ITSM theme, this is going to be a demo of a customer satisfaction report. And we're going to build an eazyBI customer satisfaction report as an alternative to the one that is already available in Jira Service Management. Let me bring this into view. So first, you should see on your screen here the Jira Service Management customer satisfaction report that is built into the software. And you'll notice from this report that it is very simple, looks nice, and it allows us to view a customer satisfaction feedback and rating across the recently resolved issues in a customer portal project. Now it's worth bearing in mind that this report is not customizable. The only thing that you can really do here is change the timescale which you're looking at. And it's also worth mentioning that this report is tied to the specific service management project that you're in. So if you want to do consolidated reporting, you don't have that option here. You have to switch between the different reports to view your data. Now, what if we wanted more? What if we wanted to tie in some more data? What if we wanted to look at multiple reports from multiple different projects? What if we wanted something like this? This is an eazyBI equivalent. And granted, it maybe doesn't look as rock and roll, but it is much, much more powerful, much more functional. You'll notice that we have more or less re-implemented the same functionality here. So you can see that we have satisfaction score, we have satisfaction comments, we have satisfaction averages here in the middle column, and some ticket data to excuse me, to go with it. However, you'll also notice that we have a couple of projects pulled into this report, which already makes it better than the built-in one. And we have further options to pull in all kinds of additional metadata into this report if we so choose. Now, what would happen if the default import facility that is available in eazyBI didn't actually support importing all of this information? So what would happen, for example, if we could only get the issue satisfaction score, but not the issue satisfaction comment out of the default import? Well, we would have to do something as per our architecture diagram before. We would have to implement some microservice that gives us that missing data. And we're going to walk through a beginning to end example of how to get that data into eazyBI. So firstly, let's have a look at this from the user's perspective. So I, as a customer of a Jira Service Management customer portal, I'm just going to raise a request for support. And let's just say that we're wanting to onboard a new hire. Who is it? This new hire is going to be called, let's say, Clara Schumann. Clara is going to start in February because that's a good month. And what does Clara need? Needs good piano. And we're going to raise this request in our service management portal. Now that we've done that, I'm going to switch to the agent view to resolve this request and then submit some satisfaction feedback. So clicking on here. Without going into too much detail, I'm just going to switch it directly to resolved. And once I've done that, the customer will receive a request for feedback via email. I'm just going to quickly switch to the email to show you how that comes through. I've actually cheated before this demo, and I have created my own little previous request for feedback, which I'm just going to use here for expediency. So I'm just going to say, good. That opens up a feedback window, and I can just type in good enough and add that comment to my score. Now, as we said before, we're assuming here that although eazyBI can pull in the score, it cannot pull in the comment. So I have to do something to pull that comment in. And I mentioned before, we're going to use AWS Lambda to do that. So let me just very quickly show you what that looks like. In AWS Lambda, we have an API gateway and a Lambda function. What this does is it allows us to publish an API endpoint of our own that when we access this API endpoint, it will then pull in the missing data from Jira and store it in AWS. So let's very quickly look at that endpoint just to see what it looks like. So this is what that endpoint returns. And you'll see that there are sets of data here. The first bit of data is the issue ID, and the second bit of data is the comment, issue key, I should have said. And if I refresh this endpoint, you'll notice that once it refreshes, there will be additional data here from the request that I just raised. And you can see HR10 here is a new entry, which we have just pulled in programmatically, and that missing bit of data, that comment, is now here. And what do we do with this? So we have this API endpoint. We want to pull that data back into eazyBI. So let's switch to eazyBI and have a look at how to do that. So I'm going to go to my data import functionality. Let's just leave here for the moment. And you'll notice I've got two import functions configured here. The first one is for just the standard Jira import. This one has to execute first to pick up the ticket that we just created. And then the next one, which I'll just put into the import queue, is going to be our custom REST API endpoint. You can see here that the source of that endpoint is exactly the URL that we accessed before, which is this custom one configured here in the Lambda function, and it returns this data that eazyBI then imports. Our Jira data has now imported, and we're just waiting in the queue to pull in that data from our custom endpoint. That's happening now. And now that the data is imported, we can very quickly switch to our original report, access it again, and we can see in front of us that our the issue that I gave feedback on, HR10, is now here. Different issue to the one that I raised, but you get the idea. And the new issue has been pulled into view. It has my feedback score. More importantly, it also has my feedback comment, which we pulled in using the API. And all of that obviously gets tallied up in the averages that we're computing here. And that is really it in a nutshell. So as an example, just to recap here, what we've done is we've used the custom export and import functionality to build a, excuse me, to build a little microservice in AWS. That microservice pulls in the missing data using a custom API endpoint, which talks to Jira via the REST API. And then we use the REST API import option in eazyBI to pull that data back in to eazyBI and include it in our reports. So hopefully that was helpful and illustrative. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. In closing, thanks very much for tuning into this demo. Just another shout out to eazyBI. They actually have a very useful public demo site, which Nigel mentioned earlier, and I've just included the URL here for your reference. Feel free to play around with the tool just to see if it can meet your ITSM reporting needs. Thanks everyone for listening. I'll just hand over to Nigel for the final Q&A. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Kris. Again, I think that was really useful. Quite a technical demo. So I think if any of you have any follow-up questions, after the webinar, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks to Victor as well for helping prepare that demo with Kris. So we're going to go into the live Q&A now. So I can see actually we've got quite a quiet audience today. We don't actually have questions that have come through. Feel free to ping them through just now if you like. I have a couple of questions from my side. Let me just see, I'll start my video as well. There we go. So we've covered the demo site. That was actually one of my questions I was going to ask. I was going to ask just specifically on eazyBI about sharing reports and how do you go about sharing reports from eazyBI Cloud, but also self-hosted, and is it the same process? So that one's for Gerda or Dinah.
But can you repeat the question? Sorry, I was posting the second demo account with Kris to mention, so.
No, that's okay. So I was just asking about if people want to externally share reports that they've set up from eazyBI. Is that a straightforward process?
Yes, that is actually. You can use eFrame that is with public access token that you can share in web pages. But there is several use cases. Mostly people prefer to actually share them, I think, on the Jira dashboards, because it's the place where they go inside the Jira. So they don't have to go to, especially into the eazyBI, find the correct link. It's just straight in their face, basically. So that is the most popular, I would say.
Okay, thanks for that. We've got a question that came in from Peter Bruning. So what options are added by the Insights feature So I think, Dinah, you mentioned you were going to answer this one.
Yeah, I will answer this one. So we have Insight data import for server and data center for some time for now, and actually we have two different imports. Gerda showed one where you can import Insight data into Jira issue cube, but we have another one where you can analyze Insight data themselves, the data structures, attribute data based on Insight data. And we just recently released version 6.2 with some additional new options there. Gerda already showed some that we can import additional attributes into Jira issue cube for Insight objects, and actually it's quite handful for more general information, so that you can combine Insight and Jira data into one report and group by some attributes. So it gives more flexibility to some Jira reports. And then in the Insight Cube, we have option also to work more with those Insight attributes and use them, for example, to build custom hierarchies in Insight cubes for Insight objects or object attribute dimensions. And it gives two-level hierarchies for objects, so that based on attributes and attributes of linked attributes. So it's a bit maybe not very easy for me to say this attributes, but yeah, they added some additional dimension hierarchies there, so it's easier to build those more advanced reports based on any data. I think many who are using Insight would be very happy with this improvements we just did.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. I guess to take a step back as well, just in case people aren't aware of Insight and what it can do, we touched on it in a previous webinar, but essentially it gives you a configuration management database and also asset management. So you can capture all your kind of key services, etc., in Insight in a hierarchical way. Kris, do you want to maybe say something else about Insight and the value it can bring in brief, I guess, since we only have 5 minutes left?
Certainly, I think, well, in brief, it is at its heart a a configuration management database, but it can be used for many different use cases. You can use it as a lightweight CRM or a heavyweight CRM if you so choose. You can use it for managing your IT assets. You can use it for managing your users, importing custom information about user profiles and things like that. It allows you to build any sort of informational hierarchical schema. So similar to Jira, where you have your Jira issues and they have custom fields on them, in Insight you can do that, but in a sort of much more powerful way and integrate that into Jira tickets. I guess that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. And then obviously also into eazyBI as well for consolidated reports.
Indeed.
Cool. We've got another question. So are there any plans to integrate with popular third-party apps in the Atlassian ecosystem out of the box? So again, one for eazyBI to answer.
Yeah. We actually cover quite many already popular apps. We actually try to analyze what are the popular ones, and we encourage our customers to vote for any write to us to support email you already mentioned, and vote for. And we collect those votes and see if there is some demand for particular reporting needs, and for particular apps, we try to add it to our stack.
Because,
but in many cases, there is also an option to just use already, as Kris mentioned, those options to use either REST APIs or access, if we can detect something, define additional attributes and import quite a lot already. So there are some missing pieces there, but there are options, maybe a bit harder way, but add it, yeah. But we are checking out what are votes and looking for further development based on this.
I just wanted to add, if people want to know what apps we support, you can also find them in our documentation. I will post the link. And because maybe somebody is not aware of what integrations we already have. So just to, oh, sorry, incorrect link, but I will, it is about advanced roadmaps. Yeah, I will just add in chat. so people can explore, because there is, as Diana mentioned, quite a lot of already. So if there is not what you're looking, just write an email.
Thank you, Gerda.
Perfect. There is a question in the chat actually relating to advanced roadmaps, which is, I guess is more kind of PPM. But there's a question from Graham. Are there any eazyBI examples of reporting using data from Jira advanced roadmaps, which is, I guess, an interesting question.
Actually, I will take this one. I hope you don't mind.
Okay, no worries. I posted the documentation. If somebody is interested better about the examples, I think you will cover it better.
Yeah, we are importing Jira roadmaps by default, and what we're doing here, we are building hierarchy based on a portfolio hierarchy structure or roadmap portfolio structure, and we import some additional properties. We do not have specific cases that we have identified that could be the hierarchy could be very unique for any customer. There, any customer can define what levels are on top ones, and if we just we can show some of them, for example, in some of our demo accounts, but some reports may be hard to export-import because they might contain a bit different structure of the hierarchy, and it's hard to switch between different Jira instances with different setups. Therefore, we do not have specific chart types, but many charts you can see on any hierarchies. For example, Gantt charts from on our demo account can be customizable for this one. And we haven't figured out a very good use case that could be very easy to with simple clicks to replicate, because any hierarchy could be different with 2 levels above, 1 level, 5 levels above. So there could be such differences, and therefore we didn't add it as default ones. But you can use any chart type based on hierarchies.
Okay, cool. It's worth mentioning as well. So there's eazyBI usually run community events every year. I think this year has been challenging for obvious reasons. But I think it was a couple of years ago, potentially. If you look up eazyBI community days, there was a talk actually about scaled agile, and a scaled agile solution was demoed with eazyBI and a couple of other tools. So it's maybe worth having a look at, and we can send you on the link after the webinar as well. But there's lots of recorded videos through the community sites and so on, so you'll be able to find lots of resources to help. I'm aware we're tight on time, but I'm just going to ask one quick question on, well, I say quick, you can maybe keep the answers brief again for eazyBI. So a lot of our cloud customers, they often ask about data residency, and Atlassian has recently updated its roadmap, confirming that a choice of data residency and where your data will be stored will be offered later in 2021 as an add-on subscription for all plans on cloud. So my question is, where is eazyBI currently stored? And what are your plans for data residency within your own kind of cloud deployment solution?
Yeah, currently we are storing our cloud infrastructure is located in UA. I can't recall it. I think it's Belgium. Sorry.
I will check it. I will check it to Diana.
I think it will in Belgium, but I am not sure. But actually, yes, we are looking for because this is a hot topic for everyone. So yes, it is on agenda, and we are looking for what Atlassian is working on, and we try to follow on this. So we will definitely provide, for example, for US for yes, it will definitely be a separate residency option there. For I can't tell, for example, if for UK there will be separate. I know that there is someone who already asked for it because UK is not long anymore in US. So I can't tell about this. This is a recent change. We do not have. I can't tell if there will be any plans specific for this.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, thanks for that. One final question, since we're all here, we may as well just answer the last one. So with a cloud-friendly import solution, as with AWS, are there any limitations, cost or performance considerations? So that one, Victor, you were going to take?
Yeah, so it's quite varied because it does depend on the cloud provider. So let's just talk about speaking for just AWS, where we implement our services, of course there's, for example, lambdas that Kris demoed there. You only like 15 minutes on execution time. So, for example, let's say you're bringing in like thousands of issues. Of course, that will probably exceed that limit of time. So we can always find ways around this. For example, you can start processing data before the import and storing it in AWS as like a cached local copy, you know, so kind of like prefetching type of behavior here. And then you can get around this speed performance. And also with AWS, you specify, again, similar to the data residency question here, you can specify where it's stored as well, so you can increase the speed, well, closer to Belgium in this case. So that's performance side of things. For cost, of course, again, the longer you run your services and the more uptime you have on them, it's going to be more expensive. I hope that's kind of brief. I don't want to go over time too much.
Yeah, I think we're quite tight on time, but I think that answers the question. I think obviously there'll be infrastructure costs depending on what microservice you're running.
Yeah.
But I think that answers the question. So I think I shall go on and just present the last few slides then and just wrap up, because I'm aware that people may have other meetings coming up. So I think I'm still sharing my screen. I'm a bit rusty with these, so bear with me. So massive thank you to everyone today for being involved. But also this slide's just saying thanks to everybody that was involved in the current webinar series. So we've had, this is the 6th webinar, and we've had obviously Atlassian have been involved, eazyBI, Refined. We've had lots of partners and customers share their success stories as well. So thank you to everybody that took the time to be involved. If you do want to get in touch or follow up on any questions that you didn't get a chance to ask today, feel free to reach out to us. One of our specialities is ITSM. So we build solutions all the time in cloud and also data center now and self-hosted. So if you need to find out more about products and processes and practices, we can help you set those up within Atlassian tooling. There are contact details, so info@newverve.scot. Feel free to ping us. I'll also say as well that the past videos for all of the events in the current series, they're up on that URL, so you can check that out there. Just have a look at previous events. We're going to make them a bit more accessible and create just a landing page for all those videos as well at some point in the next few weeks, potentially next month. We'll see. We do plan to do another webinar series, and we'll probably have some webinars as well on cloud migration, since that's on everyone's minds at the moment. So keep your eyes peeled on the website, but also if you sign up to our newsletter through our homepage as well, you'll be kept informed. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So hopefully we'll see you at the next event. Keep in touch, and thanks again to everybody that was involved today. Cheers.